Horror movies usually try their best to make a good first impression, whether that's through a cold open before settling into the movie proper, or starting off with a big twist. And that's because all it takes is one effective scene for audiences to start paying attention and be totally won round by what's happening on screen. I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are the 10 exact moments recent horror movies won us over. Number 10, Unmasking Ghostface, the first time, Scream 6. 6 movies in, it must be tough to deliver a surprising Scream opening scene that carries the subversive tendencies that audiences have come to expect. And the opening of Scream 6 initially looks like it's spinning its wheels a bit, giving us a phone conversation between a film teacher and her would-be killer as they chat horror movies in the middle of an NYC bar. It's once she's being killed, though, that the real introduction begins, as Ghostface stands over her body and then, weirdly, unmasks, giving us a reveal that's usually saved for the third act. Of course, this is when we realise that this Ghostface wannabe is the real opening victim, as he receives a call from another Ghostface killer, one more brutal and experienced than viewers are used to. This double bluff intro keeps us guessing throughout before the film's true Ghostface delivers the killing blow and hilariously says, "Who gives a f*** about movies?" straight to the camera. It's an amazing way to showcase that this is a different type of killer that we're dealing with, even if the film itself never quite capitalizes on that for its final reveal in the climax. Number 9, Keith's Death Barbarian. Barbarian's early goings are utterly marvelous, and that's down to how it keeps you guessing as to who is or isn't going to be the film's antagonist. See, director Zach Cregger makes excellent use of the anxious situation between two strangers, those being Georgina Campbell's Tess and Bill Skarsgård's Keith, who are sharing a double-booked rental property. Not only is this a vulnerable situation for Tess to be in anyway, but audiences are keenly aware that this is Bill Skarsgård, famous for playing villains, and as such expect the worst from his character. Which makes it all the more surprising when this tension leads to no sinister reveal for this character, and in fact ultimately results in Keith dying an early death as he has his head smashed in by the movie's real villain after the pair investigate a hidden basement tunnel. It's an absolutely insane first act twist, and one that makes you realize that you should never assume where Barbarian is going. Number 8, the real villain reveal, Orphan First Kill. Despite being a prequel, it initially looks like Orphan First Kill is gonna be a basic retread of the first movie. As our main character, the villainous Esther, escapes a mental hospital in an impactful first act set piece, it appears that the movie is gonna settle into a familiar groove. From here, she convinces a grieving family that she's actually their missing daughter, intending to rip them off or kill them should they discover her secret. The twist, though, and where First Kill really kicks into gear, comes from the fact that some members of this family actually have known that she's not who she said she was for this entire time. As a result, the mother and son have their own secret. They've been covering up the daughter's death for years, but had to accept Esther into the family to not arouse any suspicion. They couldn't exactly say, "We know she's an imposter," because we know the real girl is dead. From here begins a tantalizing game of mutually assured destruction, as neither can fully snuff the other out without being compromised themselves. Number 7, the opening face-off, Evil Dead Rise. Evil Dead Rise gets off to an impeccable start by essentially giving us a mini classic Evil Dead movie in the cold open. Before we get to the new setting of the apartment complex and our proper cast of characters, we start at a franchise staple, that being the iconic cabin in the woods. Set after the events of the movie we're about to watch, following a cool fake-out with a drone, we see a character who really is possessed by a deadite. Without skipping a beat, she immediately embarks on a killing spree that sets the tone by straight up showing someone getting scalped. As the demon levitates above the lake, we're then hit with a title drop and a stunning piece of music. And honestly, that's kind of as confident as the movie ever gets, hitting the ground running from here on out. As a letter of intent, it's hugely effective, immediately establishing that Rise isn't messing around, while even giving fans some cabin in the woods action before switching gears. Number 6, Ellie travels back in time, Last Night in Soho. While Last Night in Soho may have underwhelmed from a commercial standpoint, Edgar Wright's 2021 dive into the waters of psychological horror is still a worthwhile piece of cinema. Featuring all of the right trappings audiences have come to expect from the director, the flick follows the tale of Ellie Turner, who is transported back in time to the 1960s when she sleeps at night. After a bit of a shaky opening where it kind of feels as though Wright's style is a little constrained and the movie is a little all over the place, that sentiment vanishes in a heartbeat as soon as we step back into 1960s London. The introduction of Ellie's 60s counterpart Sandy, played by horror royalty Anya Taylor-Joy, gives the movie so much life, a fascinating character, and a super sense of style. Not to mention the gateway to a truly horrifying plot twist later on. Inviting questions and awarding emotional investment in equal measure, this gorgeous sequence drives the narrative forward while firmly hooking audiences in for the ride. Number 5, the opening credits, Army of the Dead. Zack Snyder's Army of the Dead is a heist movie with a twist. This 2021 offering is set in Las Vegas during the middle of a zombie outbreak that has decimated Sin City, and like most Zack Snyder movies, it's the opening credits that get you super hyped for what's to come. Cleverly introducing the cast through interwoven snippets, the doomsday visuals are brilliantly juxtaposed against the tones of Richard Cheese's Viva Las Vegas. Richard Cheese, by the way, who you might remember from Dawn of the Dead's soundtrack as well. Zombified strippers chase their patrons, infected humans are summarily executed, and jets roar overhead as the horizon explodes under a hail of missile fire. Subtle it ain't, but who wants subtle from a big, dumb Zack Snyder flick? Number 4, Gordy's big moment, Nope. For as much as I love Nope, and I really do, even though I realize as a whole it's not everyone's cup of tea, its gaudy subplot is maybe even more mesmerizing than its main plot. That main plot revolves around an extraterrestrial terrorizing the Californian skies, but a stunning flashback to kick the movie off teases the traumatizing story of side character Dupe and performing monkey Gordy. We later get more detail on the context, with a scene depicting a brutal attack by Gordy, a rampaging chimpanzee featured on a television show who turns feral from the audience and the lights, all from the perspective of then child actor Dupe. Beating 2 cast members to a pulp, the sight of the chimp in clothes and a party hat drenched in crimson gore is straight out of a nightmare, an effect compounded by the squelches of flesh and the screams for mercy. Gordy having his head blown off as he calms down is just the icing on an extremely traumatic cape. Number 3, the Predator battles a grizzly bear, Prey. 2022's Prey breathed fresh life back into the wounded Predator series, courtesy of a rip-roaring spin on the traditional narrative, spectacular action sequences, and an electric lead performance from Amber Midthunder. Still, there was worry whether this direct-to-streaming spin-off set against the backdrop of 1700s America would actually fit in with the series. The epic sequence that banished all of those fears, though, thankfully arrived early on, where Midthunder's Naru is cornered by a terrifying grizzly bear, only for her furry adversary to be attacked by the Predator using its cloaking technology. After a bone-shattering showdown, Prey's antagonist dispatches the bear with one vicious swipe, hoisting the enormous carcass above its head with all the effort required to lift a foam noodle, and bathing in the grizzly's blood. It's jaw-dropping cinema, with Naru's expression of frozen terror likely being shared by those watching. Number 2, Brendan informs Noah of his intentions, Fresh. Mimi Cave's Fresh was one of 2022's more pleasant horror-based surprises. Carried by stellar performances from Sebastian Stan and Daisy Edgar Jones, the film follows a young woman who begins a relationship with a debonair stranger called Steve, only to make the discovery that her new beau is actually a cannibal when she awakens to find herself in chains. Fresh's early goings are superb because, like Barbarian, it keeps you guessing. That all changes when Noah wakes up in this cell though, as Stan's Steve, later unmasked as Brendan, reassures the panicked Noah that he isn't going to assault or murder her, before revealing his harrowing true intentions, which are his plans to harvest the meat from her body to sell it for profit while she's still alive. It's a terrifying window into just how gruesome Stan's character truly is, setting the tone for the remainder of the movie. Number 1, the curse is revealed, Smile. Going into Smile without knowing anything about it is absolutely the best way to watch it, not least because the opening scene is one of the most shocking and memorable in recent memory. While you might think a movie about a smiling, shape-shifting demon is going to be a little bit goofy, the introduction to this flick squashes any fears by delivering a brutal, intense sequence that neatly introduces our main character and the central concept. Picking up with our protagonist, an overworked psychologist named Rose, during a session with a new patient called Laura, it's clear something is amiss. Laura is convinced that she's about to die, and that an invisible entity is haunting her. As the scene builds, Laura suddenly jolts, screaming that the entity is in the room with them right now, and the next thing we know, everything is quiet. Laura is standing still, smiling at Rose, her face never changing as she slices her neck open. It's such an effective, brilliantly put together, brilliantly violent sequence that it locks you in for the rest of the movie, proving that Smile is gonna have way more bite than you might have thought. So that's our list. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. What did you think about these movie moments? And are there any great ones that instantly won you over? Let me know, and while you're down there, if you could, please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.